I called all over the world. Nobody was home. I guess they're trying to tell me something. That was the beginning of his suicide note. And I have it burned in my heart. I've had it in my heart for 35 years, and it has informed everything I've done since then. One of my brothers managed to avoid the draft because he'd been injured previously, but my oldest brother did go. He volunteered rather than being drafted so that he could go to officer candidate school. And I knew when he went that he wouldn't come back. I resented that he chose to go. I was very angry at him for going. I protested. I spent several years involved on the fringe of the anti-war movement, protesting, going to every march that I was able to in the DC area. My mother was very unhappy for me in participating. She felt I was betraying him. He said, sorry. She has every right to, thank you. I wasn't protesting him. I was angry because I knew he would suffer. And to some degree, I was right. He didn't come back the same. Can you imagine being 19 years old and being responsible for the lives of other people and actually taking someone's life, someone you don't know, somebody whose country you've essentially invaded? I can't conceive of what went through his mind when he was there, or the horrors that he saw, because he didn't talk about it much when he got back. He just exhibited a lot of anger and just a lot of things that I prefer not to remember. He did not speak about the violence, and he never discussed any of the combat situations. He just wanted to forget it, and I can't blame him. And 11 years later, he killed himself. The day before he died, I had this thought in my head because I couldn't get a hold of him. I thought in my mind, I hope he doesn't go out thinking he's a loser. I think on some level I must have known what was to happen. So after he died, I went into the mental health profession with the idea that nobody was going to die on my watch. It was my way of somehow making amends for not being able to save him, not being able to hear what he was not saying about his experience there. Several years ago, on two different occasions, one was the relative of one of the guys he led, and the other one was one of the men in his platoon. They contacted the family, a member of the family, my brother, because they wanted his kids to know, and they wanted his family to know, that he had saved their lives on more than one occasion. And that was his role when he went. And I didn't realize that at the time. At the time, I was just a kid pissed off that he would risk his life for an unjust war. But what he told his men was that my only job here is to get you home safely. And so to hear that from the men in his platoon really helped to heal that piece of my heart that he took with him. That trauma of that loss was twofold, because I hated that war. Even as I speak this, I can feel the grief in my body just kind of taking over, because 50 years later, I can't believe it's 50 years later, it still is extremely painful to remember those times.